Hello, we're still alive and working on the Colma branch. Today we're in the town of Colma, down at the railroad station, which dates all the way back to 1863, when the San Francisco and San Jose Railroad laid tracks through here. This picture was taken in 1955, just a couple of months before I was born. Now, the arrangement of this little depot and its freight shed is rather interesting, but a bit more on that later. Colma, originally known as Lawndale, has never been a large town. In fact, its current population is only around 1,600, this counting its living residents. But also being known as the City of Souls, Colma is the final resting place for hundreds of thousands in its 17 cemeteries. Here we are in the 1950s, watching a small Alco-led train referred to as the Hill Job, coming up the grade from the SP main line down at San Bruno, through South City, and along the base of San Bruno Mountain, into Colma, on its way up to Daly City in the southern part of San Francisco. The train's caboose, number 475, is a small RPO that was converted to serve this little branch line, and it did so for many, many years. Now, if it looks like this station's freight shed was kind of an afterthought, looking as if it was brought in and pushed into the side of the station, actually, just the opposite was true. Originally, in 1863, the little station was situated on the west side of the San Francisco and San Jose's railroad tracks, just south of San Pedro Road. Later, under SP's ownership, the station was moved north to a spot north of Washington Street sometime between 1872 and 83, still on the west side of the tracks. And then again, in 1920, it was moved a second time to the east side of the tracks between Washington and San Pedro Road. The little depot was moved right up against the existing freight shed, and that's where it lost a small portion of its roof in the process. And here it would stand for another 70 years. Now, beyond the PMT truck, across the road beyond the fence, was its original 1863 location. Here's a picture of when it was in its second location, still on the west side of the tracks, north of Washington. And finally, at least when it was still an active station on the line, here it is at its third location on the east side of the tracks. Of course, the trackage being the original main line out of San Francisco, Colma would see a scheduled 18 daily passenger trains, as well as many freight extras, come through town in the latter 1800s. But after the Bayshore cutoff was completed in 1907, this 1908 schedule reflected a more sparse schedule for the line. And in 1924, it would only see one passenger train each way on the daily schedule. Here, many years after any scheduled trains, it's 1956, and we see a fan excursion coming back from a trip up into San Francisco. This shot is taken from San Jose Avenue Bridge, looking north, and then, running over to the other side of the bridge, we watch it as it continues south. A bit farther south, we catch it as it climbs up toward Ocean View on the berm between San Jose Avenue and Alameda Boulevard. Finally, reaching the summit at Ocean View, it crosses San Jose at Sickles, rolling down into Colma for a brief stop, and then on to continue crossing the bridge at El Camino Real. In a previous episode, I shared how El Camino Real was widened to 6 lanes for traffic and room in the center divide for the 2 tracks of the 40 streetcar line down to San Mateo of the Market Street Railway and later San Francisco's Municipal Railway. Anyway, I believe that was done about 1930, as I think that's the year that was stamped into the concrete support of the bridge, I think. In the years prior to the branch being cut back, Colma would still see some freight action, though much less than in its early years. When the line was permanently severed in 1942, when the bridge over Dolores Street was removed, service on the line through the Mission District and Noe Valley would be no more. Tracks were left abandoned to be redeveloped. With the Dolores Street Bridge gone, the upper portion there in the dark color was abandoned and let go, leaving the line to reach only up as far as the Burnell Cut. That stayed for a few years through the 50s, and some of us old guys can still remember a few things up there, like an occasional boxcar over there to Ray Oil Burner, seen here with the tracks coming across San Jose Avenue. Bodie Gravel still had a bit of an operation there that required service, as well as a small lumber yard up by Geneva. And of course, the SB still service the San Francisco Municipal Railway shops at Elkton, in between Geneva and Ocean there. So, still a little bit of action. However, steam disappeared, and here we see an NW2 taking over the chores. And a little bit farther south in town, heading back toward Daly City. So, a couple more years pass, and once again the line is cut back, this time right at the Daly City-San Francisco border. Kind of an interesting picture. Look down the tracks. As the tracks curve, you can see a switch stand down there. Kind of ironic, and kind of funny, really. You might think, oh, wow, they still got business up there. But it turns out it's just a derail. And how in the heck do you have a derail on a line that doesn't even have anything above it? But anyway, there it is. So now we see how the line only goes as far as Daly City, and gone are the days when the line came up out of San Francisco, only to be replaced with BART taking over that right away. So in case you're not familiar, the Bay Area Rapid Transit District actually assumed the SB's right away on this entire line all the way down to San Bruno and even farther. But kind of an irony here, I'll share a set of pictures Frank McFay took of an SB train, actually probably the largest movement on this line in history, I don't know. But here's a train full of rail for BART being pushed up to Daly City. Frank was there to capture the moment, but kind of an irony. Here we've got SB actually helping out its successor. And so history is being made. Frank was there to catch it, and quite an extraordinary time. I dare say 2 Jeeps on this line were the biggest power this line seen ever. But anyway, there it is. But to continue our story about our station at Colma, we look at there, and about this time the line's been cut up above it, not too far above, and there's not a whole lot happening on this line anymore. Certainly no reason for the station anymore. It's pretty much being left neglected, not used. I don't know if it was purpose there, but certainly after another line cut farther down towards South City, it was left completely orphaned on its own with no purpose for the railroad. As I understand, a realtor moved into it at one time and used it for an office space. But eventually BART would actually extend south of Daly City right through Colma, and the station was right in the way. So as I understand it, and I'm not sure I got this right, but BART moved the station down to a spot up above El Camino. It looks rather, I don't know what. Looks like it's about ready to join its friends there and get buried. I don't know. Anyway. Well, our story ended better. The little station didn't die. The good folks of Colma And the Colma Historical Association took it upon themselves, and must have been a huge task, to refurbish our little station. And what a fantastic job they did. Top to bottom, just first rate. Really looks great. They moved it up onto Hillside Boulevard, and that, along with its freight shed, actually positioned like they were prior to 1920, each across the tracks from each other. There they stand, and it's fantastic, really nice. I don't know how much work and who all did it, but they actually needed a piece of track to complete the display. So my friend Frank Maffei says, "Hey, come on down behind Macy's warehouse here. We're going to pull up some of the old track." Now Macy's, I wasn't sure, but I didn't know if Macy's was still getting boxcars every week. And I looked at Frank. I said, "Frank, you are sure that they're not using it?" "Oh yeah, no problem." So anyway, a buddy of mine, John Diano's got his torch out and torched that out, and Frank and some others got the track up Hillside Boulevard, and there it is. So not only is the station preserved, but they actually preserved some of the real track that was below it. So in my modeling of Colma, I go back quite a few years, not necessarily any time specific, but certainly long before BART or anything like that came through. A time when Colma and the area was more rural and agricultural. A time when there were a lot of farms in the area, long before all the houses were built up. But a time yet that I can kind of reach back to and enjoy some memories of. The area around Colma was very heavily agricultural. They grew lots of different types of produce: Dutch cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, artichokes, Brussels sprouts, which is not my favorite, lettuce and potatoes, among other things. Also grew flowers, which would be shipped out in baggage express cars up in the town and elsewhere. But it was a pretty intensive place and had a lot of rail activity for a lot of years. An awful lot of buildings popped up as freight sheds and box building and crates, manufacturing and that kind of thing. Some burnt down in rather spectacular fires, but others made it through time, and you kind of wonder how long they could have stood on their own, but they stayed a while. But eventually, most would come down, if not all, and everything changed. Certainly, if you went up to this spot today, you would see none of this in the picture. But there's looking up Washington Street in times past. Another shot looking over at San Pedro Road in times past. Colma had a gambling place, BGO's Gambling Hall. And I always wondered how much money was lost there, but probably good times. Until it, too, was torn down finally. And of course, time passed and steam disappeared and diesels arrived on the scene. Alco's did the job early on, and we enjoy a couple of views of it in front of the little station. Returning from Daly City after dropping off cars off the hill job, it'll pause here in Colma and do some trailing point switching and on its way to South City and interchange down with the SP down in South City or San Bruno there. And here we take a couple of shots and remember back to the times when the area was rich in agriculture and produce walked away in many, many reefer cars. There's some recollections of old-timers saying as many as 35 reefers a day pulled out of Colma. So you can imagine it was a busy area, a busy time. So here we watch our little train cross San Pedro Road, and it'll no doubt back up to our very cute little caboose 475. Yes, it does. And then head out of town, finally. On its way down into the cemeteries, and on its way down past South City. And as it leaves town, it's up behind Woodlawn Cemetery. We'll continue down the backside of that. Actually up on a berm just before it crosses El Camino Real. Here we see it behind the very famous Woodlawn Cemetery building. Quite a structure. And finally across El Camino Real. Interesting to see that the 40 line streetcar is still there. Probably wouldn't see this as that streetcar line ended in 49, if I'm not mistaken. And our train is a little bit later on in years than that. But a neat little scene. So, again, thank you for looking in. I appreciate it. Great to be alive in Colma. And I really appreciate you looking in one more time. Hope you enjoyed it.